The other thing I did to the panel is instead of replacing all the avionics and all the radios and everything so I can get GPS, I just put a RAM mount on there, just a standard off the shelf RAM mount to attach my little iPad mini, and it sits there right on the dash. I put in a second USB charging port for it. So now that's my whole panel. It's just an iPad and an EDM 900, and everything on the right hand side is simple and very efficient.
I think the iPad thing, Brian, is one of the smartest things that people can do. I hear oftentimes people are upgrading, airplanes. I'll call it a VFR airplane, like your Buccaneer, with $30,000 to $40,000 worth of certified instruments. And why? Are you ever going to fly your Buccaneer on a weather day where you're having to fly an approach down to 300 feet? Probably not. So for the money and the practicality, buying an iPad, it's just huge. The one thing actually I'd sit in my backpack right here. I'm a huge proponent of is this little doodad here. So I've actually got two. I've got this doodad. I don't know if anybody knows what that is that's watching.
Stratus. I have one in the other room. Yeah. And I also have another one. I've got the Stratix. Let me go find my Stratix. It's right here too.
This is the Stratus 2S.
That's like an AHRS, isn't it?
Hey.
Like with ForeFlight?
There's a.
Yeah, that's it's a full AHRS for ForeFlight. So I have a Stratus 2, just like Tom has, which is the one I primarily use. Then I also have this little bad boy over here. I don't know if you can see it. This is this is called the Stratix, and this one is significantly cheaper than the Stratus. And it's a little mini computer. It's called a Raspberry Pi, and it just sits inside this case with a couple software defined radios, and it works really, really well. And it also means I can write my own software for this thing. So some people use these. So if you've ever been on like Flight Radar, then they're watching ADS-B signals. A lot of times they're actually using one of these things, and they just connect in the. It's actually inside it. There's a network port inside of there that you can plug into, and they just connect that to the internet, and then suddenly they're able to watch any kind of ADS-B traffic. So these are really handy little devices. They're really, really cheap. The big problem is that these are they're fiddly to get going and fiddly to make work, and they have no battery in them, so you have to have an external battery. But they do work really well.
So Tom's is the same, isn't it?
Well, the Stratus has an internal battery, but the one thing I like about it, I don't know if you guys can see there.
Yeah.
Horizon. It's flawless. I mean, it just works. You turn it on and it works. Is it certified? No, but I can tell you, I'd much rather be flying IMC with modern, electronics than some 45-year-old instrument that's just garbage.
Vacuum gate.
Exactly. And when I was
even for a Stratus 2, that's an iPad 4 Mini. One thing to note too, if you're going to buy an iPad, make sure you buy one that has 3G functionality, because the Wi-Fi only iPads don't have a GPS built in. But buy 3G one, buy a Stratus. About $2,000, I think, for the pair, and it is just phenomenal. You've got everything at your fingertips. You can save all of your data. So there's a function in ForeFlight. Well, there's an additional expense with ForeFlight, but let's say I'm going to do a trip from here to Toronto. I can do a pack, and all the charts, all of the NOTAMs, all of the information that I need is all uploaded onto my iPad, saved. All the maps are saved. I've got the entire North American VFR map system saved on my iPad. I mean, it's just crazy to think about how many paper maps you would need. Like, you need a suitcase or a duffel bag full of paper maps. It's just crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing I like about my Stratus, I was flying back from Ontario, and there was I was flying along, and I had the Stratus connected just to see what other traffic was out there, playing around with the AHRS part of it. And suddenly a little blip appears on my ForeFlight, and it's right ahead of me, and it's coming straight towards me, but it's 2,000 feet below me, 3,000 feet below me, something like that. And I'm like, well, what is this? So I haven't heard any radio calls, so I make a outbound radio call, and nobody responds. And I realized they're probably taking off from that airport over there. So I I quickly tap on the radio signal on ForeFlight, just figure out what radio it is, quickly swap over my radio signal and just key the mic. And sure enough, it's a medevac coming out of there and they're coming straight at me. And if I didn't have that ADSB, they might not have seen me. I might not have seen them. I actually veered out of the way, maybe about a mile, and I looked over and I saw, and they would have, and we were basically at the same altitude at the same place, going exactly in opposite directions. And we would have had a conflict there pretty easily. So it just, to me, having ADSB is amazing, even though I don't have it out. So
it's a huge benefit to safety. I mean, to your point there, a couple of years ago, Mark, another pilot friend of mine, we were flying down to Reno. We were about 100 miles north of Boise, 14,000 feet. The weather was, I mean, it was obscured visibility and smoke, probably down to about 2 miles visibility. We probably should have just filed IFR, but anyway, long story short, we saw opposite direction traffic coming towards us on the Stratus about 2 minutes before ATC called us up and said, "Hey, there's some traffic." He was 2,000 feet below us, but still, I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to see that sort of thing well in advance of even an ATC heads up that, hey, there's some traffic there. Total boost of safety.
Absolutely, yeah. We were starting to install those in gliders back when I was flying gliders, and they weren't ADSB transceivers. They're called power farms, which do kind of the same thing. They do receive ADSB, and they easily would have been easily saving people's lives. There's been so many times where you've been out flying around in a glider, and it'll ping at you and say, "There's someone over here," and you're like, I didn't see them. It's told me exactly where they are. And the nice thing about power farm for gliders is obviously gliders we get in close proximity a lot. So it's able to understand where the gliders are going. So it's not constantly freaking out at you and saying, you're getting close to them when you're both just thermaling. Yeah. So great piece of equipment. I love this stuff.
Is the Stratus ADSB out or just in?
Just in.
Just in, yeah.
Just in, yeah. So speaking of upgrades, I think I should talk a little bit. So Avionics was pleasant enough to help us out with some of their new technology. So they have a new transponder called a Tailbeacon X. It's an ADSB out. I forget what the version for Canada is, but it's the satellite-based version. So ADSB out and a Mode S transponder.
Is it Diversity? Is it called with the two antennas?
Yeah. So maybe that's what it's called. I can't remember, but
yeah, they connect with the Iridium satellites. I can't remember the actual name of the Iridium. They're like ACOM or something.
So anyway, Avionics has been trying to get this certified, so they've asked for some people to help them out with some of their testing. I've got one. I've tried it a few times, but it's incredible how small it is. So essentially, it fits in your tail light, similar to the tail beacon that they're already selling as an ADSB out option in the US. But this is an entire standalone transponder. So the tail beacon and the wing beacon that they're selling in the US, you still need your regular Mode C or Mode S transponder on board the airplane. And what the tail beacon or the wing beacon does is it sniffs it sees the output of your transponder on 1080 megahertz and then couples your output with your altitude to the GPS signal, and ADSB transmits it out. You still need your old transponder. The system that they've given us, it's a complete standalone unit. It probably weighs less than a pound, I think, the entire thing. Simple installation, 3 wires, but it's crazy. So far, I've done about 6 flights with it, I think, or maybe, I guess after yesterday, probably 2 more flights, 8 flights. It's working good. It's just crazy to see the new technology. It's a step ahead. There's none of this old crap that it's got a wire harness of 18 wires that are an inch thick. Modern stuff, all digital, just excellent.
I'm so excited about that Tailbeacon X. That Avionics is doing some amazing things, and those things are incredibly cheap compared to the stuff from Garmin. Like for a Garmin unit to do ADSB out, Diversity out, you're looking $7,000-8,000 US. Whereas a Tailbeacon X, a Avionics Tailbeacon X, they said is something like $2,500. So way cheaper.
I think it's a little more than that. I saw it on Spruce. So this is the first one they sent us. They sent us an updated one. So this is the entire transponder. This is it. That's the control head. That's it. Nothing else.
And does that do your mode C and your mode S, or just mode S?
I think it's just a mode S output, but essentially it's your standalone transponder. You don't need anything else. You program it all through Wi-Fi. You turn it on and you log on with your phone or There's an app actually they use to set up your aircraft parameters in it. It works great. I mean, they've had a bit of development issues, but that's the standard development practice. They're trying to get it to market quickly, and what they've got now works great. I mean, it's light, it's cheap. Even at $5,600, I think is what they're retailing for on Spruce now. It's still cheap. I mean, 10 years ago to buy a new Garmin transponder was like $5,000, just the tray. And again, to wire it, it's a huge undertaking. You've got coax, you've got all this crap. This has got none of that. Plug it in the tail, that's it.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing. They're only available for experimental though right now, aren't they? Or can you get them for certified?
So right now they're still just for experimental aircraft. They're trying to get them certified, and what they do actually. Do you want to grab that thing in?
But those diversities aren't even available yet, I don't think, to buy. Aren't they just like beta testing?
We're in the beta testing. I haven't talked to Trent in a while, but they give us this little doodad too. So this is a Sentry that's been repurposed to be a data logger. So what's happening now? When I go fly, the satellites are recording the transponder, and this is also recording the ADS-B output live. And to help with certification, from what I understand, they're taking the recorded data from here and comparing it to the satellite data to make sure they match. And if they match, I guess they need some number of hours of flight testing or miles or something to say they're good, and then the certification will go forward. But I think they're trying to get it certified this year. So that'll be the one that'll be on the radar to a lot of people, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Super simple install, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I was looking at doing some further upgrades to the panel, particularly because I wanted to go to the States this year. Obviously, pandemic has kind of squashed that, but I was looking at going to the States, and to really fly around properly in the States, you need ADS-B, and I'm not going to waste money on a regular ADS-B unit when we're going to have diversity here, at least in the higher altitudes in Canada here very shortly. So I'm waiting for that tail beacon to come available for my plane, and then I'll be the first in line to buy one.
Tom, do you have to run wiring, like data wiring back there?
There's one serial pair, so 2 circuits, and power. So if you were going to install it, like let's say Brian's going to put it in the Buccaneer, I don't know where your tail light is. If it's up on the top of the rudder, I'm guessing. Yeah. You use the power wire for the light to power it, and then you need to run a shielded twisted pair to feed data. For data. Yeah, it's not a big deal though. Compared to what a regular transponder install is, I mean, I'd much rather run a 24 gauge twisted pair than 30 feet of RG400, or if you're using RG58 still, plus all the encoder wiring. All the encoders still parallel gray code.
All that comes out. The antenna comes out. The big box.
I've left mine in my Lancer. I haven't completely tore out the old stuff. I just want to make sure all this is good and working before I do that. But once that happens, then that stuff's coming out, because it's just dead weight you're hauling around.
Yeah. Does it doesn't make sense running old radios like that? Because they come for sale quite often.
I mean, the comment that you mentioned earlier about my post on Facebook saying, those radios are like buying used toilet paper. It's 100% true. So could you imagine going to a garage sale and buying a cordless telephone from 1985? With the old antenna that was telescopic. That's essentially what you're buying. It's old crap. I mean, back in 1980, or a lot of the radios were developed in the 70s. Yeah, they were cool at the time, but these aren't the 1970s anymore. And the amount of money and effort you're going to spend on an install of something like that versus what a new radio costs. I think a new ICOM A200 is about $1,200 or $1,400. It's going to work, and it's not going to come out of tune. It's not going to need adjustments. It's not going to need maintenance. It's going to work when it's hot. It's going to work when it's cold. It's not going to use 80 amps because something fried in it and caught on fire. Those exact radios, a buddy of ours, Chris Weaver, he had a report of one caught on fire and got thrown out the window. I mean, these are the things that happen. They're older technology, right? They're 1970s electronics. You look inside, even some of the later King transponders, the Phoenix King KT76A transponders, the later model ones, the circuit board looks empty because they've, taken all of this old school technology and replaced it all with a couple of microcontrollers. It's just crazy to see the development changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you used to have big discrete components, transistors. You'd have vacuum tubes if you go real far back, and now it's all just replaced with these little microchips that software defined radios and some of the later stuff. Like that's running this thing is a software defined radio. These things work so much easier. They're so much cheaper, and they're way more reliable.
That's the entire control head